This is Trish Parnell with PKIDs, and we have Nurse Mary Beth Kosla-Petracco on this podcast, and she's going to talk about bicycle helmets today. Hi, Mary Beth.
Hi, Trish. How are you? Happy spring.
Oh, thank you. Happy spring to you, too. And I know spring brought bicycle helmets to your mind, being the public health nurse that you are. So both my kids ride bikes. I ride a bike. I am sort of ambivalent about helmets for myself, and I know you're going to yell at me, but I do make my kids wear helmets, and I don't know much about them. So what's the deal with helmets?
Well, you need to be a good example for your children and wear a bike helmet as well. We have dramatically decreased the number of head injuries in children and adults by advocating for the use of bike helmets for all children. I know you've mentioned before that I live here in New York, and we actually have a bike helmet law. A parent can be fined if a police officer finds a child without a bike helmet. One of the leading injuries and leading causes of death from accidents in children until the advent of bike helmets was head injury because kids were falling off their bicycles. The big thing, and it doesn't matter what color, kids should be part of the purchasing and the use of the bike helmet. It should be a color the children like. They should be allowed to decorate them, but you always want to get one that's certified by the National Safety Council to make sure that it's made out of the appropriate kind of plastic and it's padded correctly for the child. The other thing, too, that we want to remember is always make sure that it fits snugly. And we've always talked before about proper sizes for things and body weights. That's important with the bike helmets to make sure that it fits properly, the chin strap is in place, and that in order to offer the most protection for the child.
Now, before you go on, let's talk about how it fits, because I have a hard time with this with my kids. I mean, they don't complain, but I'm just not sure what I'm doing. So should the bike helmet kind of, I don't think you have to force it on the child's head, but should it be a snug fit before you even do the chin strap?
Yes, it should be a snug fit. You should not have to force it, because if you're forcing it, that means that it's really too small. But it should slip on, and parents should be able to get like a finger between the side of the child's head and the bike helmet.
Okay.
If they can't get a finger in there, it's too tight.
Okay, that's good advice. And then the chin strap, we don't want it cutting into their faces, but
Correct.
Describe how it should fit.
It should fit snugly without making a mark on the child's neck when it's on the child. So that if you pushed into the helmet might move, but it's not going to be pushed off the child's head. Because actually that's how the helmet protects the child's head. The helmet takes the force of the blow rather than the child's head, which has the brain in it bouncing around. That's how head injuries occur. The brain is a nice, soft tissue that's contained in this very hard, bony case. And when a head injury occurs, what happens is the brain bounces back and forth inside this bony case. So it not only strikes the ground or whatever else it hits, the blow comes to the bone of the brain, but then there's another injury that actually occurs inside the child's skull as the brain bounces around inside the skull, which is the secondary part of this injury, which is usually the part that causes more damage.
And that's the brain swelling that we hear about?
And that's the brain swelling that you hear about, because what actually happens is the brain can develop what we would consider to be a bruise or a black and blue. And there's no place for that blood to go because the brain is encased in this very firm, hard bone.
Okay. Now, when the helmet is sitting on the head, is it supposed to be down on the forehead, like just above the eyebrows, or where exactly do you want it?
Well, it depends on the style of the helmet. Usually the ones, they will come just like to the brow level with some of them. Some of them are those aerodynamically shaped ones. They almost look like a pod that sits on the top of the child's head. So it depends on what kind of helmet the child is wearing.
Okay.
But the directions in the box show usually a picture of exactly how the helmet should sit on the child's head.
Okay.
And it should be comfortable. Very lightweight, but very high-impact plastic.
Okay, we are actually going for our first bike ride of the season soon, so I will wear a helmet from now on. I promise. Be a good role model for the kids. Now, what about? Do you want to touch on the other kinds of padding or anything else that we should be doing?
Well, generally speaking, any kind of a contact sport or anything where children would have the opportunities for falling, elbow pads and knee pads are never a bad thing for children because they fall down all the time if they're falling off their bikes. They're not absolutely essential because the amount of damage to those joints is usually minimal compared to the damage from head injuries.
Okay.
But they're never a bad idea.
Okay, great.
To be wearing knee pads and elbow pads.
Okay. Well, if I see any parents out there without helmets, I'll say, have you heard Nurse Mary Beth? Well, you just go here and listen to this podcast. So thank you. I know it's I think a lot of people just don't think too much about bike helmets. At least I have to admit that I don't, but I will now, I promise. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk about them.
It's my pleasure.
Okay, talk to you later.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.